Here we got the control module, the remotes, a little wiring harness, and then this is a vacuum solenoid. Plugs into the harness and it'll allow you to turn vacuum on and off to your exhaust. So we're going to be installing this in the trunk where it's easy access to the battery, and then I think we're going to try and go through here with the vacuum line that's got to get routed to the exhaust. So there's plenty of room to mount that little box down here. So first take out your spare tire, give yourself room to work, and then I'll go ahead and see where we can mount this and route it. Alright, so I went ahead and pushed this grommet right here through. The rubber grommet is somehow taped or shrink wrapped onto this wiring harness. So we're just going to cut a small hole in the middle of it. That will allow us to push our vacuum line through. To go under there and pull on it. Okay, so we got it coming out there now. So we need to keep this vacuum line away from the exhaust. So what I'm thinking is run it from here, run it up under this heat shield, and then up here by the front bumper. Then from there we can run it over to the Valvetronic module. We're going to have to put a T in to go to either side, and there's actually a space behind here that'll allow us to run to the other side. So I really need to get some clamps to clamp this on better, but I don't have any right now, so we'll have to come back later with the clamps. This T that I have is actually too big for this size vacuum line, so I'm really forcing it on there, but it shouldn't have any problems with leaks then. So with that about there, let's push the excess back through. Alright, so it's kind of hard to see with this on, but we're going to run the vacuum line from my T here over to the vacuum solenoid on the exhaust. We're going to actually go up here above the stock tips, and then onto the solenoid. Okay, it's hard to see here, but we're routing it up above the stock tips. There's like a little bracket here, just ran it above the tips between the bracket, and then over and around to the top vacuum solenoid, so then it's not weighing on any exhaust pipes or anything. Now we just measure, hook it into the T. There's a bracket here for the bumper that I'm going behind just to kind of hold it in place. That looks good. Now I'll run the other one over. behind here. Then we're going to want to go ahead and throw some electrical tape around here or some other tape to seal that off better, and then we'll push the boot back through from the other side. I think I'm going to actually tape it from underneath. There's more room to work. Alright, so you can see I taped it, and then I pushed this boot back through. There we go. Okay, so we got this big furnace here. This end plugs into the control module. This end plugs into the vacuum solenoid. And then we wire to power and ground here. So let's start. Need to mount this solenoid somewhere with this hose coming out. And I'm actually not sure which side is in and out, so we'll have to give it a test and see what happens. It doesn't have a label on it. I'm just going to mount this with some double-sided tape, and we'll try that for now. It has a bolt here where I could bolt it to somewhere, but just until we have it all figured out, I'll try this. Let me get the tire, because I don't want to have this interfere with the tire at all, so we'll do a test fit, see where to locate it. Okay, so anywhere down in here is open still. So that's fine. So we're going to mount it. Control module right here. Solenoid up here on the driver's side. Let's put some tape on here. Stick it right down in here. And that'll plug in. Control module. We'll zip tie this up later to clean it up. Oh, there's the antenna. Okay. So do it like that. That didn't work. There's a divot there. Gotta get it on a flat spot. There we go. And here we got power and ground. We'll hook those up. Okay, now the fun part. We got to run a vacuum line from here all the way up to the engine bay. Okay, so we're going to try and run the vacuum line down the passenger side here. Run it along here up to the front. So first thing we got to do is remove the seat. The seat is just a pressure hold. See, just okay, so just pulling it up didn't work. Right in the middle of the two sides, if you stick your hand in there, you can feel there's actually a bolt. So it's a 12mm bolt. There we go. So that side's loose. Yes, there's a lot of food back here. I had to remove my two car seats to be able to work on this. So to remove the side bolster, there's a 12mm right here. This pulls right out after the bolt. So now the goal is to run the vacuum line through here, and I think we can feed it under here without taking anything else out. So I went ahead and bought 20 feet of vacuum line. Not sure how much we'll actually need. We'll see when we're done. I'll just remove the bolt, that'll be easier. 10mm bolt here. Should have ran it the other way. So I'm just leaving enough here to route over to the solenoid. Looks good. Let's test fit the tire again to make sure that the tire's not going to interfere with the vacuum line. So the tire is sitting on it right here, so we're going to have to route it around, which is fine. Underneath all this wiring. Okay. So I just pulled up on this door seal and then pop this right here off, and then I think this next one is a pressure clip. Let me get this hose out of the way for a second. Okay, so it just pulls off. So here you can see the factory wiring harness, and that's what we want to run it next to. There's space along there for the vacuum line. So the goal is to run it along here and then up under the dash through a ground up to the engine bay. Let's pull this seal again. Okay, so it just all pulls up. Now we're going to see if we can feed our vacuum line from the back through here. So we're feeding it right in here. There's plenty of space to get it through, it's just that this vacuum line is flexible. So I was having like no luck feeding this vacuum line through there. It's just too flexible. So I have these fiberglass fishing rods for fishing wires that I just shoved right through, and it had no problem. You can see it up front, so it just slid right through there. You could also use a metal coat hanger or whatever you can find. So just going to tape this on there and pull it through. So I just did a test fit with the side bolster. You can see it has no problem. No problem with this routing. So we ran it under here, then underneath the seatbelt, and then just along here, right by the wiring harness, and then up through there. So I'm actually going to fully reassemble back here just to really make sure it's good, and then we'll keep going forward. So this 10mm bolt goes back in here. And this side bolster has this hook here. This is what hooks into the top. And that holds it down. Push this back in. There we go. Perfectly hidden. Okay, we gotta remove the glove compartment to access the grommet. We're gonna be running up to the front. Okay, so you just pull down on that and then slide it out. Okay, and then right here's the grommet. So I guess we took out the glove box for no reason. Okay, so I poked through the rubber grommet with a screwdriver. Now it's not long enough to reach all the way up there, so I'm going to use my There we go. So this would be another good application of the coat hanger. So I got this through, and then we're gonna just feed this vacuum line on here. And I really need to tape this too because it's gonna be tough to get this through. All right, we got it. So it's gonna be really hard to see. So if you see where the light is right there, that's the grommet down under there. And I poked through with the screwdriver and then fished this vacuum line through. You just pop your fuse box cover, and then it's right down here behind it. You can't reach it with your hand, but if you fish it from the inside, you can get it out. And here we go. And then the next step, I'm going to fish the rest of this through. But then we're going to come up here and I popped the plastic cover off, and then right here, this vacuum line, we're going to pull that off there. I already removed this clip here just to be able to move it out of the way. There's a little clamp you got to slide down, and then you pull this off, and we're going to tee in right there for vacuum. Right at this little square box on top of the engine. So we just gotta feed the rest of this vacuum line up under this little kick panel. Forgot to pull that earlier. That just pops off. We don't need to remove it all the way, we just gotta get our line underneath. Pull the rest of that up. We can put the rest of this back together. Make sure everything's lined up and you're not going to pinch your vacuum line. And then seal. Alright, my camera battery died, but I finished this project up, so the only thing left to do back here in the trunk, because I ran the ground, just attached it to this ground bolt here, and then the power, just took this nut off and screwed it on here, so pretty straightforward. And then we're ready to go. And to test it out, here's the remote. You can hear the solenoid activate when you press the on button. So I'll show you the front. So we got our vacuum line here. I routed it up under here and through this hole here. There's a little plug I just removed, and then just ran it. I may move this later, but for now just ran it up under here, under the charge pipe, and we put our T in. And this T is a little too big, so I can only get the factory line on part of the way, but it's got the clamp on it, so that'll hold. And then just slip this piece on. This is a little bit smaller pipe, so it fit better there. And then just pulled this clip up a little bit. So we got a little slack here in the factory line, but I don't want to cut it, so that's okay. It's just got a little loop in it. That's it for the install of the control module vacuum line stuff for the agency power Valvetronic exhaust. I mean, it's a little bit involved to run that vacuum line down the body panel, but overall I say it took me about 2 hours to do this. That's including taking all the back seat out, the side panels and everything, and putting it back together. So really not bad at all. Professionals at an exhaust shop that do cutouts and stuff like that could do this a lot quicker. I mean, I hate working on body panels on cars, but it's easily manageable for DIY. Thanks, and stay tuned for the next video where I start this thing up and see how awesome it sounds.